Now you can search for new episodes by subject matter at londonreal.tv. Brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform we use at London Real. I remember hearing about your book. I started in 93. It must have just come out in 94.
It just came out. Yes.
And I saw a picture of the cover. Your hair is a slightly darker color. It was a while back, but it was kind of legendary in the trading community. A lot of people were talking about it because I don't think there were that many people going on these crazy adventures that had been in the business. And I was wondering if you could tell me, what do you learn on the back of a motorcycle that you can't learn, say, reading a balance sheet or watching CNN?
You're not going to learn much watching TV, I assure you, no matter what the program. Well, you see the world from the ground up. There's no question. You see what's actually happening, not what journalists are saying, not what writers are saying. When you're close to the ground, you see a whole different world. You see whether a country is being organized properly, whether there's a black market, whether it's corrupt. You see everything there is to see. It's not secondhand when you drive around the world, either by motorcycle or by car.
I'm actually reading Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance now, and he talks about how even on a motorcycle, you're forced to really deal with the weather, and you feel it more than even in a car where it can seem a bit like a television channel.
Yeah, when you're in a car, you're in a box.
Right.
It certainly is a television show. You might as well be at home watching it on TV if you're in a car or a truck or something. If you're in a motorcycle, you're right out there in it. You're part of it, which is exhilarating and exciting and very, very, it's a wonderful way to travel and live. It's a great adventure. That's why I loved motorcycles so much. And that's why I wanted to go around the world on a motorcycle, because I knew I would see it all, which I could never see any other way.
Right. And you were one, so many people went into China early. So many people got burned on China early. People tried to understand it later, had a hard time even trying to refigure it out again. What's your relationship been like with China? Was that the first time you were there? Was driving your bike through there?
No, I first went to China in 1984. I went to China in 1984 to get permission to ride my motorcycle across China.
Okay.
They actually sort of thought I was a little nuts to even come an American capitalist to Red China in 1984 to say, could I ride my motorcycle across China? And they, of course, said no. First of all, they said there's no road, and they were right. I now know they were right. There was just a gigantic desert. But I went around to various parts of China and asked more people. In 1986, they let me drive around one province on a motorcycle. Then they said, yeah, you can do it. And Channel 4 in the UK and PBS in America and Channel 7 in Australia decided to make a movie of it for TV. And so we had to delay it for a year because they got ready. But off I went in 1988 and rode across China.
And why China? You could have gone anywhere else in the world to tour. Why there?
Well, my hope was to drive around the world. But if you remember the 1980s, China was Red China. The idea that you could ride across China was absurd. Likewise, the Soviet Union was the Soviet Union. So my plan was to drive across China and then get permission from Russia, the Soviet Union, and then go around the world. I look back on it and I must have been insane. I didn't have a clue what I was talking about or thinking about. But it all worked. I got permission to ride across China. We made the film, and then the Russians said, yeah, you can ride across the Soviet Union too. And then I went around the world. That was the original plan. It took several years to implement it because of the Cold War and all the things, the geopolitics that were taking place at the time. I didn't want to be somebody who said, yeah, I drove around the world. And they said, what, you drove across Europe, you went to Australia, you rode across the US? That's not, to me, that wasn't going around the world.
Right.
I had to do the world if I was going to do the world. So it took a few years to get permission to do it properly.
Do you ever have to explain to your daughters what it was really like back then when the Soviet Union was around and China was Red China? Because they probably don't know what you're talking about.
If I try to explain it, they're too young to even conceive of what I'm talking about.
It almost sounds Orwellian when you try to describe it to someone.
Orwellian wouldn't work with them. They're too young.
Right.
They're still too young.
They wouldn't know what that meant. We take real pride in our websites and who we work with on the show, and those are the guys at Squarespace. They've been running our website londonreal.tv and our siliconreal.com for over a year now, and they are an all-in-one platform to make it fast and easy to build your own professional website or portfolio. These guys have the tech down. It's drag and drop. It is easy. I used to run a WordPress site, and I used to have to FTP audio files and all this nonsense. And now when you see these blogs that I write every week where I talk to you about my personal impressions of the guests, I literally just bust those out, drop the picture in, boom, and it's done.